There's a story you tell about yourself. You've told it at dinner tables, on dates, to people you just met. The holiday that went wrong, maybe. The thing your dad said in the car. And you can see it while you're telling it. The light in the kitchen. What you were wearing. Who laughed. You've told that story, what, 40 times? Here's the part nobody mentions. Not once in all those tellings were you reading that memory. You were rebuilding it from parts, then saving the rebuild back over the top of the original. The version in your head tonight isn't the day, it's the last time you told it. For most of the last century, the standard account was more comfortable. A memory starts out fragile, then, over hours or days, it sets like concrete. After that, it's fixed. You might not be able to find it, but the thing itself just sits there. Then, in 2000, three neuroscientists at New York University, Kareem Nader, Glenn Schaaf, and Joseph Ledoux, ran an experiment that only makes sense if that's wrong. They took rats with a fear memory that was old and completely settled. That fear was trained in weeks before. A tone, then a small shock, over and over, until the tone on its own froze the animal solid. Fixed concrete. Then they did two things in a specific order. First, they reminded the animal, so the memory was actively being recalled. Then they put a drug called anisomycin into the amygdala, the part of the brain that holds fear memories. Anisomycin stops cells building new proteins, and building new proteins is how a brain makes a memory stay put. The next day, the memory was gone. Play the tone, and the rat just carried on. No freezing, nothing left to be afraid of. Now the controls, because the controls are the entire result. Give the same injection without reminding the animal first, and nothing happens. The memory is fine. Remind the animal, wait 6 hours, then inject, and again, nothing happens. The only way to lose that memory was to catch it while it was open. Their paper ran in Nature, and it's the reason the word reconsolidation exists, which tells you something strange about remembering. A memory sitting untouched is safe. A memory you're in the middle of recalling is not. Pulling it up doesn't copy it out. It loosens it, and your brain has to rebuild it and set it again. Rats, to be clear, not you. If that just made your own head feel slightly unfamiliar, that's the channel. Like and subscribe, and I'll keep finding these. So what happens when you run that idea on people? In 2007, Almut Hupbach and her colleagues taught volunteers a set of objects on day 1. On day 2, half of them got a small reminder of day 1. Same room, same experimenter. Before everyone learned a second, different set. On day 3, everyone was asked to recall the first set. The reminded group put objects from the second set into the first. The group with no reminder didn't, and the contamination only ran one way. The first set never leaked into the second. The next one is worse because it uses the thing you'd assume was protective. In 2013, Jason Chan and Jessica LaPaglia had people watch a video, then tested some of them on what they'd seen. Afterwards, everyone got fed a few wrong details. The people who had just been tested were the ones who took those details on board. 6 experiments published in PNAS. Recalling it first didn't armor the memory, it opened it. And in 2012 at Northwestern, Donna Bridge and Ken Paller followed single memories across several recalls and watched them drift. The task was plain. Remember where an object sat on a screen, then put it back from memory, over and over. Each recall got built from the last recall rather than from the original, so the errors compounded. After enough tellings, you're not looking at the event. You're looking at a copy of a copy of a copy. It's a telephone game, and you are every single player in the line. Run that long enough, and there's nothing of the original left. We made a video about the far end of that, about first memories, and one number in it still bothers me. When Shazia Akhtar and Martin Conway asked more than 6,000 people for their earliest memory, Around 40% described one from age 2 or younger. A brain that young cannot store an event that way. Those aren't corrupted memories. They're memories of being told. Which raises the obvious question. If your memories are being edited every time you take them out, why can't you feel it happening? Because the part of your brain that decides how certain you feel isn't wired to the part that determines whether you're right. On the 12th of September 2001, Jennifer Tallarico and David Rubin at Duke went looking for the clearest memory in the country. The day before, hijacked planes had flown into the World Trade Center, and the towers came down on live television while millions of people watched. That's what psychologists call a flashbulb memory, the one you're certain you'll be able to replay for the rest of your life. So they asked 54 students to write down how they'd heard the news. They also asked for an ordinary memory from the same week, nothing special. Then they brought them back weeks and months later, asked for both again, and checked every new telling against what that student wrote down on day one. Both memories decayed, not similarly, at the same rate. The most vivid day of their lives held together no better than a Tuesday. But something did separate the two. The everyday memory started to feel uncertain, the way memories are supposed to. The flashbulb memory didn't. It stayed sharp, and the students stayed completely confident it was accurate, while its actual content drifted. William Hurst and a much larger team followed thousands of people for 10 years and found the same split still running. Vividness isn't evidence. It never was. It's just a separate dial. The most famous example is a matter of public record. George W. Bush described more than once watching the first plane hit the tower on television that morning, before he walked into the classroom he was visiting. That footage hadn't been broadcast yet. Nobody had it. He wasn't lying. He did exactly what Tallarico and Rubin's students did, reassembled a morning out of things he saw later, and filed the result as something he witnessed. If you've ever had the opposite version, that jolt where a brand new moment arrives feeling like a memory, we made a video about that too. Same crack, other direction. The feeling of remembering is manufactured separately from the thing remembered, and either half can go wrong on its own. Okay, so here's where I have to slow down, because the story I've been telling has a tidier ending than the evidence does. You've probably heard the line, every time you recall a memory, you damage it. So the stories you tell most are the ones you should trust least. It's a great line. It's also further than the evidence goes, in two specific ways. The first is that recalling something is also the best established way to strengthen it. Being tested on material beats reading it again, reliably, across ages and subjects and formats. Psychologists call it the testing effect, and it's one of the sturdiest findings in the field. The same act that opens a memory to editing is the act that makes it last. The second is that when researchers went looking for reconsolidation, specifically in humans, carefully, it kept not showing up. In 2016, Tom Hardwick, Mahdi Taki, and David Shanks at University College London ran 7 experiments trying to reproduce a well-known human result, and found nothing. Other labs have failed too. The effect they were chasing was in learned movement, a practiced finger sequence, nudged after recall. The conditions where it does appear are narrow. The reminder has to carry a little surprise, but not too much, and get that balance wrong, and the whole effect vanishes. So the honest version is smaller than the great line, and more interesting than it. Remembering doesn't wear a memory out. It makes it editable. The shape of the story gets sturdier every time you tell it, and the details quietly migrate toward the telling. Which, if you think about what a memory is for, is not a flaw. A memory that could never be edited would be a beautiful, perfect record of a world that no longer exists. The route that used to be safe. The person who used to be kind. One way to read all of this is that memory was never built to preserve your past. It was built to predict your next few minutes, and something built to predict has to be able to change its mind. There's even a version of this being tested deliberately. Alain Brunet at McGill worked with 60 people carrying long-standing trauma. Once a week, they took Propranolol, an old blood pressure drug that turns down the body's alarm response. And then, 90 minutes later, deliberately brought the memory up and told it. Drug first, then open the memory. The same order as the rats. Over 6 weeks, their symptoms dropped much further than the comparison groups. The memory isn't deleted. They still know what happened. What changes is the volume. One trial, 60 people, so nothing is settled. But it is someone using this on purpose. So, that story you tell about yourself? It isn't a recording, and it never was. It's the most recent draft of something you have revised, in good faith, every single time you've told it. The parts you're surest about are the parts you've rehearsed most, which makes them the parts you've had the most opportunity to change. And you can't audit it from the inside. You can go back and turn it over tonight, carefully, trying to work out which bits are really yours. That's just one more edit.